All right, welcome back to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Bruen, and we have a very special guest once again this week, Sean Jacoby of American Icon Autographs. Thanks so much for taking the time today.
Sure, no problem, Joe.
So, we'll talk a little bit about sports. We'll talk a little bit about wrestling and obviously autographs in general. What were some of your interests and hobbies growing up as a kid?
So, when I was real young, I thought I was going to be He-Man. I was like 6, something like that. And that kind of morphed into pro wrestling. And so when I was around that age, I was a little Hulkamaniac and Ultimate Warrior were my two favorites at that time. And then about 91 or so, I got into team sports as well, baseball, football, basketball. And throughout the mid 80s to mid 90s, baseball cards were really popular. And so like every kid had some amount of baseball cards, football cards, whatever at that time. And at one point, I think it was like 95, I started going to Padres games. I was 14 years old. I started going to Padres games at Jack Murphy Stadium. And I'd go early and stay late and hang above the dugout and trying to get autographs from the players. And the industry was not the same back then. And so like a lot of the players were nice, and I was a kid not trying to resell anything. And so I got a lot of autographs. It was great. And as my collection built, we went to a local store here in the mall in San Diego and traded like guys that I had multiples of for like Hall of Fame guys that I didn't have access to. So the Padres were hot 96 and 98. They were playoff teams. And so like if I had a couple Tony Gwynns, a couple Trevor Hoffman, a couple Ken Caminiti, I would take the duplicates to that store and trade them for guys like Willie McCovey or Willie Mays, Hank, whatever, to just try to build my collection. So I was trading these autographs that I got in person for Hall of Famers that I didn't have access to. And that kind of built my memorabilia collection. I remember a couple times in high school, I got my mom to let me skip school, and she took me to like meet Ken Shamrock, do a meet and greet, like to promote Raw or something. So I was a big wrestling fan back then. Like my high school football coach called me Cold Stone Sean Jacoby, which is kind of hilarious. And that's an ice cream. I don't know if it's a national chain, but it's an ice cream shop here in San Diego. Is it? You guys heard of Cold Stone Creamery outside of California?
Yeah, it just closed recently, but we had one just down the street for years.
So, and I was a big Padre fan and Charger fan until they left San Diego. Now I don't watch the NFL at all. It was such like a sore subject, the Chargers leaving, that I just turned off the NFL completely.
Yeah.
But sports, wrestling, all throughout my childhood, and that was that. It was great.
And you mentioned you used to go to the games, get some autographs. Ken Shamrock, one of your earliest wrestling signings. What were some of the other early wrestling signings or sports signings?
I got that wasn't something that I did. I was just a fan going. Macho Man was at the fair here in San Diego, the Del Mar Fair, and I waited for hours in the sun to get a Slim Jim promo signed by Macho Man, which is great. I wish I still had that. That was fun. It was pretty neat to meet Macho Man and Shamrock when I was a kid. Like they were like real life superheroes to me. It was like meeting He-Man.
Right. And was Macho everything that you were hoping for?
Oh gosh, what a mess that guy was. It was awesome. He was totally the character. It was great.
And when did you start transitioning? You said you were kind of trading and selling, but when were you transitioning?
I never sold autographs or cards when I was just for my collection all the way. And then I ended up going to San Diego State. It's a great story. I was going to go to junior college here locally to play football. And I was undersized, so I was like, I can't play anywhere good, but I'm going to still like playing football. So I was going to go to junior college, play ball. Well, at the same time, I was training to be a wrestler. I went to a local wrestling school and ended up hurting my neck really badly, and couldn't play football or even anymore, and barely could wrestle. I was able to wrestle for about 9, 10 more months, but just my body was a mess. And right around the same time, my next door neighbor moved out, and a different guy moved in, and he ended up being the basketball coach at San Diego State, coming to him from Michigan. And he was the guy that Brian Dutcher. He's the guy who recruited the Fab Five, and I was a huge fan of the Fab Five. And so, like, meeting him is awesome. And we're still Aztec basketball fans to this day. We still have season tickets. But he said, "Hey, what do you plan on doing next year?" He's like, "I'm gonna go to Palomar and play football." So, would you rather go to San Diego State? I said, "Yeah, that'd be pretty cool." He's like, "Okay, well, let's get you into San Diego State." I didn't have the grades, I didn't have the SAT score, but he got me in through the athletic program because he could. And so it's just, neighbor guy doing me a big favor, and turns out to be like one of the best college basketball coaches in the country now. It's very cool. It's a great relationship. We're still friends to this day. See his wife and daughters all the time. Each of his daughters have babies now. So it's a wonderful family, man. The Dutchers are great.
And when did you get to the point where you're like, you know what, I'm going to start doing my own signings, and did the American Icon autograph brand start?
So here's how that started. It was really, really cool, actually. So after college, I moved back in with my parents, and they'd moved out of town a little bit. So they're like an hour outside of San Diego. And I had my collection from when I was a kid, but I wasn't like attached to it. I wasn't collecting anymore. And so I was like, what am I going to do with all this stuff? I didn't have a job, didn't have any money. I was like living with my parents in the middle of nowhere. It's like, I think I'm going to just start trying to sell some of this stuff. So I went to a local card shop by my house, or somewhere by my house, and recognized the guy from when I was a kid. I was like, oh man, I remember you, buying cards from you when I was a kid. Different location. And he said, I said, I got the stuff from when my collection. I'm interested in like selling it. And he's like, the place to go is called Frank and Sons, the collectible show here in like outside of LA. I was like, okay, cool. So I went up there, kind of looked around. I was like, you know what? I bet I could sell some of this stuff to the vendors over there. And then I learned, like, going up there, talking to some of the autograph dealers up there, I learned about third-party authentication, because they didn't want to buy like a bunch of stuff that wasn't authenticated, didn't know where it came from. So I worked around that, and then I had one of the authenticators come over to my house, my parents' house at the time, and like authenticate a bunch of my stuff. Come to find out, a lot of the stuff that I got in trade from that mall store was fake. And so I traded these real autographs like for fake stuff. Oh. And that was devastating for me at that time. I was like 22, like had this thing in my house for, 5-10 years, and like, oh man, now it's fake. Like I almost didn't even believe it. Like I was like, this sucks, like big time. Like traded all these real autographs for a bunch of crap. And so that's what sent me down the path of being like a very big stickler for authenticity. Because I got burnt myself, trading basically sweat equity. Granted, it didn't cost me anything, but like I always have the memories hanging above the dugout, passing the card to Ricky Henderson, having him sign it. Thanks, Ricky. He says, Ricky says you're welcome. But I loved it. But it just broke my heart with the fake autograph thing, and so now that kind of that steered where I was going in business. So anyway, I'm like, okay, here we go. I got all these autographs, bunch of garbage now. That sucks, but let's try to make some money on the real stuff. So I did, but as I was going to Frank and Sons, like selling stuff to the vendors there, I started to see how like the industry worked, and they were doing autograph signings periodically over there at Frank and Sons. And then I ended up splitting a vendor booth with my good buddy Mark Neiman, owns Ultimate Pastime, very big memorabilia and card dealer, does a lot of great signings. Actually officiated my wedding, one of the best people on the planet. And so I said, Mark, what do you think about us doing a signing? He's like, yeah, dude, let's go. And so I reached out to my buddy from college who was now playing for the Raiders, a guy named Akbar Bajabiamila, just a friend from college. I said, hey, you want to do a signing? He's a rookie with the Raiders. He's like, well, I get paid? I said, yeah, I guess. He's like, how much? I'm like, I don't know, bro. Like, what? I've never done this before.
Yeah.
He said, all right, well, let's just kind of figure it out later. Like, we'll do the signing, see what comes in, and we'll figure it out. It was great. Like, Akbar was not a star player, but he was a Raider, and the Raiders were very popular in LA at the time. And I have no idea how much money came in. I have no idea what I was doing as a promoter. I had no clue at all. But it went well, and Akbar was great, and he was my friend, so it wasn't like weird. It was barely business, but
Right.
it was a good way to get my feet wet. And now Akbar's the host of American Ninja Warrior. He's great. It's like, so I called him maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. Said, we stayed in touch. I said, Akbar, like, I got a casino deal for you. To watch like a Super Bowl party, a viewing party. I said, how much did you get for appearances and stuff now? He's like, 20 grand. I'm like, holy crap, dude. Like, how much did I pay you back in the day? He's like, I don't know, but it wasn't 20 grand. It was probably somewhere between $500 and 1,500. Now this guy's getting 20 grand for appearances. And so that's just awesome. Like, I'm so proud of him. Like, he really made a good living. So that was my first ever signing. And then from there, we kind of went into he kind of introduced me to other Raiders, his teammates. And so that's how I started doing Oakland Raiders stuff. Kirk Morrison, another San Diego State guy, Fabian Washington, Teo Johnson. And then we started getting into the alumni guys like Kenny Stabler and Jack Tatum and Willie Brown, Dave Casper. So I like really started with the Raiders, which is kind of funny growing up a Charger fan. But it was a really fun time in my life. We got, there was a Raiders golf tournament that we went to. I think it was in Reno. It wasn't a Raider. It was Ken Stabler's, and they had the girls from the like the cat house. Like, it's like a whorehouse, working one of the holes at the golf tournament. And that was like a very big eye-opening experience for me. Like, holy crap, what is going on here? And so these girls were just all over these Raiders players. It was so funny. The Raiders guys had no idea what they were walking into. That's a funny memory that brings back from that time in my life. But that was man. Ken Stabler was a wild man, dude. But he would have fit in real good in the pro wrestling business. That guy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so I was let me backtrack for a minute. Like, I went to wrestling school, and the big school in our area was UPW, which was owned by Rick Bassman, who I'm still friends with now. And Rick, have you heard of UPW?
Yeah, that's where Prototype.
Exactly. Yeah. So I went to a couple UPW shows with my friends that were like in our indie that were trying to get into UPW. At that point, I wasn't ready to move up to UPW level yet. But I saw this guy at the show, like the Prototype, just a monster, who turned out to be John Cena. But I was like, this guy's going to make it. Like, I know he is. And there's another guy there, a fat, out of shape Samoan dude they called Samoa Joe. I was like, that guy sucks. Like, there's no way that guy's ever going to get anywhere outside of this fed. Like, he's terrible. I see nothing at all here with that guy. And there was a bunch of other guys that came through. Frankie Kazarian, Christopher Daniels, both trained there. A bunch of other dudes. It was a really good school. And the trainer's Tom Howard, who I call the best wrestler in the world that never got over. His girlfriend or wife is in the WWE now. JC or Lacey Jane, JC Jane, something like that.
JC Jane.
Okay. I think that's her name. But so that really exposed me to like wrestling superstars, like, real guys that had the potential, because Rick would bring in like Gangrel and Brother Love, a few other, like, because they were developmental territory. And so WWE would send somebody there like every other show or something to, I don't know, work with one of the younger guys to teach him something, work with, and so I go up to Cena after one of the shows. I'm like, bro, you're the best wrestler I've ever seen in an indie. And keep in mind, I was like 18, 19, 17 maybe. And I'm like, dude, could you come work for our indie? He's like, I'd love to. He's like, when are your shows? I said, Saturday. Every show is a Saturday. He's like, well, I have a deal here with UPW where I can't work for any other company on Saturdays. So if you do a show on a different day, I can do it for you. So I go to the promoter And I said, hey, dude, this guy, he's going to make it. Like, there's no way he's not. He's just that good. Can you book a show outside of a Saturday to just so we could bring this guy in? He's like, nope, nobody's worth that. I don't care what you think. Like, I don't care. He's never going to make it. Like, it's not important enough for me to do a show outside of a Saturday. I'm like, all right, dude. Well, I try to help your company. Like, whatever. What an asshole, huh?
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, you got to take one look at this guy, and you'll see what everybody else saw. And of course, Cena went on to be as good as there gets.
Right, one of the biggest of all time.
And then, so that was Raiders, and then we were in LA at the time, so I ended up moving to LA to get the business going because the market in LA was so much better than in San Diego. The Angels just won the World Series recently, 2002, so they're a year or two removed from the World Series. The Raiders were in the Super Bowl not too long, right around that time as well. They lost to the Bucks. And the Padres and Chargers were just awful in early 2000s, recovering from Ryan Leaf and all that. And so I started doing Raiders, Dodgers, and Angel signings, which was, as a fan, it was brutal, but that's what made money. Yeah. So I actually moved to LA for 5.5 years and stayed up there and met everybody I needed to meet. And at Frank & Sons, it would end up being like a wrestling venue. There was they would do pro wrestling shows there every once in a while. A company called AWS, run by a guy named Bart, and they brought in good names too. Like Bart's awesome. He still has a booth at Frank & Sons like 25 years later. Wow. He has a little wrestling memorabilia booth there, and there was. I went and I peeked my head into a show, and there were a few guys that I used to wrestle with on the card. And so I stayed and watched for about an hour to catch up with my buddies and see what was going on. I'm like, oh man, wrestling's like fun. It's over. Like these guys are still into it. Because at this point I was 4 or 5 years completely out of pro wrestling, not even watching on TV. It meant nothing to me at this point. I was like, okay, well, maybe there's some money to be made here. I bet we could, let's think about doing some of this wrestling stuff. And I did. I thought about it, but didn't do anything for quite a while. And so that's how I got back into pro wrestling.
And for those who haven't been to Frank & Sons, why don't you just tell us a little bit about the layout? Seems like a giant place. How it's set up.
And, so it's basically an indoor swap meet just for collectibles, whether it's toys, Pokemon, Magic, trading cards, autographs. I mean, you name it. It's just collectible only, but massive. Just there's hundreds and hundreds of booths, and it's impossible to not spend all your money when you're there. Like I took my kids there after one Christmas. They brought all their Christmas money, and like, where did all our money go? And I said, trust me, I know the feeling. Like it's. But that we've brought in some really good talent for signings there. Brought Mike Tyson there, Piper. Stan Lee many times, tons and tons of names to Frank & Sons. Like they're still doing signings there periodically, but not nearly as much because they kind of changed their business model. But it's still a great place to visit, and if you can catch a signing there, that's great too. A lot of good vendors, and they don't. It's a little bit unusual because they kind of do a little bit of their own internal policing as far as like fake autographs, Sure. They don't let just anybody get a booth there and sell garbage, which is unusual. Most companies will be like, whatever, just I'll take whatever booth money I can get. I don't care what you sell. And so that's one thing I definitely appreciate about Frank's is they do care about what the vendors are selling.
And you mentioned you've worked with tons of stars from the sports world. If you could choose one, who was your favorite to work for, non-wrestling, just sports, and best experience you had, if you could? Anybody stand out? Just the experience alone.
Well, I mean, so many of these guys have become really good friends over the years, so it's hard to just. I mean, like Jesse Orozco, we did a couple signings with him, and we really hit it off. He came to my wedding. We're still friends to this day. A lot of the old Raider guys, most of them passed away. A guy named Chuck Muncie was a Chargers running back. We did a lot of signings with him. He ended up being one of my groomsmen at my wedding. Bill Walton was the absolute best. I miss that guy so much. there was nobody more like positive and energetic and with more charisma than Bill Walton. I seriously, that was one of the worst like celebrity deaths that affected me the most, just because to me it wasn't like celebrity death, like it was my friend Bill.
He seemed like such a happy guy too.
Oh my gosh. So I don't know, it's probably 15 years ago. My wife's a dance teacher at the high school here, and couple of her kids got in trouble. The dance students got in trouble at school or the law. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I called Bill and I said, "Hey man, like, can you come to the school and like sit down and talk to these dance girls about just consequences and repercussions and life in general? Just do your whole John Wooden thing, you know?" And he's like, "Absolutely, whenever you want, I'll come." I mean, Bill doesn't like care about high school dance. Like, what is Bill's connection with high school dance girls? You know what I'm saying? And he just was happy to do it to like get these girls back on the right track. That was the kind of guy Bill Walton was. You know, and a favor to me, which was totally unnecessary. I got another cool story. So Tony Gwynn is like Mr. San Diego here, best guy. Like everybody in San Diego, you grow up like Tony Gwynn's your guy. Like it's I wish he was still alive because he was that awesome. Well, his son, Tony Gwynn Jr., grew up at my neighboring high school, our rival high school. And so I first met him our freshman year of high school. We were playing basketball against each other. He was on the freshman team. I was on the freshman team. We played against each other. And we just stayed in touch ever since then. We were the same year. We both went to San Diego State. We hung out at the college a couple times. But so fast forward to 2023 or something like that. I'm coaching Little League here, and we got this kid from Africa. Like his parents were born in Africa on our team. Really sweet kid. No idea how to play baseball, but they don't. Nobody's ever played baseball in that country, you know. But he was an athlete and good attitude, and so I really liked him. So you know, I took a liking to him, and he was at the batting cage, not with me, just on his own or with a different team. I can't remember exactly what. And some kid at the batting cage told him, "It's like, what are you doing playing baseball? Like, you'll never be any good. There's no good black baseball players." And I was like, "What?" Like this kid, you know, this kid comes back to me telling me like this racist stuff to him and no good black baseball players. And I'm just like, first of all, what are you talking about? Like Barry Bonds is probably the best of all time. Like, like we're not even from San Diego, Tony Gwynn, all that stuff. And so, like, I'm talking to this kid. His name's Rayon, and just like how defeated he was. Like to hear a racist comment from a little kid, number one, and number two, like him trying to play baseball when his family has no idea about baseball. He's just learning. It's just very defeating. Like has him questioning why is he even playing baseball. And so there's nothing I can really say to Rayon to like make him feel okay about what happened. Just I get that. So I called Tony Gwynn Jr. and I say, "Hey Tony, like this is a situation just happened with Rayon. Can you talk to him? Like he's gonna hear this much better from you being a black man than me." And he said, "Oh yeah, you know, I'll find time to make this happen." And so a couple of days later, Tony called Rayon's parents and put him on the phone with Rayon. Rayon talked to him for an hour. And like it made Rayon it meant the world to him and his family. And that meant the world to me that Tony, a kid that I grew up with just as a friend, whose dad happened to be the best baseball player in California history, like was one of my heroes, that now Tony Jr. is this kid's hero. You know, and Tony had a good major league career, and he's a broadcaster for the Padres now. And every time we see Tony, he gives my kids a hug, and it's awesome. Like I love Tony and his wife Elise. She went to our high school, and Tony's got some great kids, and one of them I think just got a scholarship to play D1 soccer. And so that Gwynn family, man, you're going to hear a few more Gwynn names in the news everyone coming up.
That's awesome.
So those are some cool, just off the top of my head, fun stories from non-wrestling. That I can recall offhand.
Sure. And, you know, you've had a great relationship over the years with Stone Cold Steve Austin, one of the biggest stars in pro wrestling. Um, there aren't other promotions that he really works with. He's kind of chosen American Icon to be the promotion. So how
Yeah.
did that come about? How did that relationship start?
Well, we've worked exclusively with Steve since 2017. He hasn't done a signing for anybody other than us. And I mean, he has, but through us, and I've been there every time. Like, he doesn't sign anything without me there,
Sure.
or me negotiating the deal for him. And like, I talk to Steve a couple times a week now, and that's even after almost 10 years of working with a guy. It's surreal because he was like my guy growing up. I mean, there's pictures of me from high school where I'm wearing Austin 316 t-shirts and stuff. And so it's just, even to this day, it's so weird. So I'm trying, I realize that, so before I get there, let me go back to starting wrestling autographs. It was 2009 or 10. And me and my buddy Mark from Ultimate Pastime, we're doing stuff at Frankenstein's. I was like, Mark, we got to get into this wrestling stuff. Like, it's selling and it's popular enough now. Like, we got to start doing some signings. He's like, all right, well, what do you want to do? He collected those LJN figures and had a bunch of those. He's like, well, let's get some of the people who have these figures from that area. I'm like, okay, that makes sense to me. So we teamed up and did a signing with our first wrestling signing was Iron Sheik and Honky Tonk Man together. And that broke us into the wrestling business the hard way. I mean, those are two very interesting personalities, to say the least.
Right.
And so, but that was fun for me in the sense that it brought me back to my childhood and fun working with these absolute maniacs, because I'm pretty nuts myself. And so I guess to be in pro wrestling, you got to be kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But I noticed people drew, like, fans came to meet them. The stuff sold online. So I was like, dude, Mark, I'm going to start doing this wrestling stuff quite a bit. And we jumped in head first and just went and did a ton of wrestling. It was great. And so I kept doing it, and I'm still doing it now. But so I did a show with Tommy Dreamer in 2014. It was he had a company called House of Hardcore. He was, and we did a big show in San Diego. It was like his fourth ever House of Hardcore show, I think, fourth, fifth, or sixth, something like that. And I told Tommy, let's do one here on the West Coast. And so I booked a big show, 50 wrestlers. Everybody was on the show in some way, even if they couldn't wrestle. Like, Piper, we did a lot. We did his podcast live. Flair was a guest on the podcast, something like that. I mean, Bischoff was there. It was a great show. And so I wanted to book Steve Austin. I didn't really know how to get to him. So I was like, Tommy, you know Steve? He's like, yeah, I'm good friends with Steve. Like, let me give him a call, figure it out. He said to Tommy, just no. Just not doing appearances, because there was a time, I think it was 2009 maybe, that Steve did a signing in the Bay Area. And it was a big wrestling. Goldberg was there. It was a very big card, and it was a very good show, but the promoter did a horrible job promoting it. And Steve and Bill got stiffed, and a bunch of guys got stiffed. And so Steve's like, dude, I don't need the money. Like, I'm not dealing with this aggravation. Like, I'm just not doing signings anymore. Like, I don't care. So I'm not doing it. So Steve didn't do anything from that show until 2017. And so 2014, Tommy calls him and says, hey, I'm partner with this guy, Sean. And Steve says, no, I just not interested. And I think we even offered Steve in 2014 as much as like $25,000 to do this public signing.
Yeah.
And that seemed like a lot to me at the time. And I think maybe we even got up to 50. But I stayed on him a little bit. I'd email him if there was something that I knew would make sense. But if I knew if 50 grand wasn't going to work, I couldn't really afford anything more than that at that time. So then fast forward to like 2016 or 2017, I'm doing a signing with Flair, and we're kind of just, after the signing, me and Rick are at the bar, and we're drinking a little bit, and I'm telling him, like, dude, I got to get Austin to do a signing. And so Flair calls Austin at the bar, and he says, Steve, this is my good friend Sean. he wants to make you some money. Like, you want to do some signings? Like, I don't know. I'll talk to him again. It's like, so I remind Steve, puts me on the phone, remind him about the Dreamers thing. He's like, okay, yeah, I remember you. And Flair or Steve had enough respect for Flair to give me his number and email and send him over something. And so I was working on it. Finally got a deal to work out that make enough sense for Steve. And it was a good deal, and he made enough money to make it worth it. And I made a killing. It was great. And finally, Steve did signings again, first signing. And so the mail order was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I think that one was $100,000. And that kind of just then from that, Mike from High Spots wanted him at WrestleCon. And so I said, Steve, like, you want to do a public signing? He said, where? First of all, he said, no, I don't want to do publics. And I said, well, it'd be WrestleMania weekend in New Orleans. You can go see a bunch of the boys. Like, New Orleans? I haven't been to New Orleans in a long time. I love that town. They got great seafood and whatever. Like, yeah, maybe we'll go to New Orleans. That might work fine. So I said, what do you think about the money? He says, it's fine. Whatever. We'll do it for that. And Mike calls me like a couple of days later after the contract signing. He's like, hey, dude, we need Steve for 2 days and double the money because we sold out already. So I called Steve and said, hey, can you do 2 days for double the money? He's like, yeah, why not? So we ended up doing 2 days, double the money at that WrestleCon. I think it was 2017, maybe 2018. It was a good experience for him. So we worked very hard for him. Everything was fine. Everybody got paid. There's like not one incident, not one issue. And just ever since then, he's been doing it for us when we ask. I mean, we don't, it's a lot of money. I mean, he's getting a lot more than $200,000 now, unbelievably. And like, I bust his balls all the time. I said, bro, you're getting paid this much money to write your fake name. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
But to his credit, like, he does take his time and signs nicely. Like, he writes 4 full letters, almost every letter each time. And that's unheard of in the autograph business. And he works very hard. He gives people their money's worth. Like if he's doing a description or the paint pen blows up, he'll literally call the fan sometimes and say, dude, I messed up your thing. What can I do to make it right?
Oh,
like,
wow.
It's insane. Like, he's incredible. He really does give a shit. And he understands that he's getting paid a lot of money and the fans are paying a lot of money. So he wants to give him a good product. And not a lot of people actually care about the final product and what the fan is getting in return for the money. I mean, how many signings have you done or been around where dude just puts his head down, whatever, and scribbles? And it's normal.
Right.
And so between my appreciation for what Steve did in the wrestling business, him being a really genuinely good guy and him actually caring what the fans get,
sure,
we get along just really well, and we've become great friends, and we talk a few times a week. Like, I got a call from one of Jerry Lawler's buddies yesterday. Said, hey, King's not doing real great. He's just had his 3rd stroke and can't really leave the house much. He's just down in the dumps and not doing that great. Said, can you have Steve give him a call? So I text Steve, said, hey, dude, call King. He's not doing that great. Just cheer up his day. No problem, dude. We'll do, and he'll do that stuff all the time. And Steve's a real big wrestling fan. And there's some guys that he never came across in his career. And so every once in a while he'll text me and says, hey, do you got a number for this guy? Or do you got a number from this guy? Just because he wants to call and introduce himself and speak to him because he's a fan. Like,
wow.
One Man Gang was a guy that he never crossed paths with, but he wanted to talk to. So he said, Sean, track me down Gang's number. I want to call him. And, so I text George, which One Man Gang's real name. And the number wasn't good. And so I looked back and I found his wife's email address. And so I said, hey, I can't remember her name. But, hey, my friend Steve Austin wants to speak with your husband. Like, can you send over the number? She's like, yeah, this is total bullshit. I don't believe this. I'm like, just give it a shot. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Right.
So Steve called Gang and they had a great conversation. He talked to Corporal Kirshner, never met that guy. want to talk to Rockin' Robin one time. Like just he's just a fan. Like it's really fun. Like that side of it.
So he truly has a love for the business.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and the work that goes into it, and the people that are in the business, and it's interesting talking to him about that. I mean, and his what he enjoyed out of wrestling as a fan and as a performer, and now how that's changed and that sort of thing. It's been a lot of fun.
And how many signings have you done with Steve now?
Oh, I don't even know. I don't
Yeah.
even know. Um, I don't know. Not a ton, maybe 10 or 12, because we don't want to flood the market. And um, the public signings are great because half of the, I guess, experience in public signings, the photo ops now. And if a fan's paying for a photo op, that's not like an autograph potentially going back into the market.
Right.
And so I like doing the publics, but he's not thrilled about it. Like I can get him to do them like every 2, 3, 4 years, and that's it. Just because I call Steve and say, hey, dude, you got a $500,000 offer, do this public. He's like, yeah, dude, no, I'm just not up for a public right now. He's like, maybe next year, And I said, Steve, why do you keep like doing these signings? You're getting paid money that you're never going to spend because he has no debt. Everything's paid off. You got a bunch of cars, big ranch, like no more alimony, no more child support, everything. He's just very wealthy. He got paid a fucking unbelievable amount of money to do that Kevin Owens match at WrestleMania.
Oh yeah.
So he's just like never need money again.
Just riding the wave.
Yeah. And so I'm like, Steve, why are you doing these signings for money that you'll never spend? He's like, I can't just not do anything. He's the good old boy from Texas who's not afraid of hard work. So he's out raising, doing the ranch stuff. He took up this new hobby of being actual like a amateur professional race car dune buggy driver or whatever with Kawasaki, and he absolutely just loves that. And the beer, the Broken Skull beer is his big passion too. He loves beer and loves that product. And he actually doesn't make a lot of money off the beer, but he's just so, if anything, really, but he's just so passionate about it. He just will never stop doing it because that's his deal. And it is a good beer. I'm not a big beer drinker, but it is good. And it's always fun to share a beer with Steve Austin.
Right. Can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to, you've worked with so many people over the years, I guess non-sports, non-wrestling, are there any celebrities you've worked with?
Oh yeah, plenty of them. That's a little different because the actors are there's a little less testosterone, I guess you'd say, than the athletes and wrestlers, and so it's a different experience. And I haven't made so many like lifelong friends in the entertainment industry like I have in sports. I mean, before Fitterman, we worked with Tyson exclusively for years, and that was great, but it was not a good. It was a 4-way partnership with me and 3 other people that had no interest or experience in this industry. And so they hired me or brought me in as a partner to do everything. And I got tired of doing everything, but only getting 25% of the deal. And the deal was structured that Mike wasn't. I don't think that Mike was getting enough. And so that it just kind of went away. There was no bad feelings. There was nothing, like, it didn't get weird, but Mike appreciated me very much because he quickly recognized that I was doing everything, and these other 3 were completely were not holding up their their fair share. But I'm happy that Mike's happy with Ryan. I really am, and I don't regret not working harder to do that deal on my own afterwards because of all the travel. that Mike does with signings, and I don't travel hardly at all anymore. And so it wouldn't have been a good fit at this point.
And do you have a personal story with Mike over the years?
Oh man. Okay. So the first signing we did was at my store in San Diego, Public, during Comic-Con. And I'm intimidated like big time. But it was a great turnout. Everything was fine. But I'm still like on eggshells, because it's still Mike Tyson, is unpredictable and whatever. And everything was great. Yeah. Literally, it was 1 or 2 weekends after that. We're supposed to do the National in Chicago, and so we're on this. It's like a red-eye flight from Vegas to Chicago, and Mike got in a verbal argument with his wife on the plane, and it was very uncomfortable for me. I'm like, oh crap! Like, what is this? Like, and his in that row, it's Mike and his mother-in-law and his wife, and they're arguing. And I'm like, oh crap. Like, I didn't even hear what it was about. It doesn't even matter. But Mike was not happy. And so we land, it's like 3:00 in the morning, Chicago airport. And Mike's unhappy with his wife, and she's pissed at him. And so he takes it out on me. And keep in mind, like, I've only met this guy once, twice before. And we're in the parking garage at one of the airports of Chicago. And Mike's got his finger in my chest, poking. Fuck you, Sean. I'm not doing your fucking autograph show. Blah, blah, fuck, And I'm like, all right, Mike, dude. Like, I thought, first of all, I thought I was dead. There was cops all around, and he's, finger poking. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, dead. This Mike, like one thing, and I'm getting my ear bitten. I'm getting knocked out. Like, something bad's happening here. Yeah. And like, Mike, it's okay, dude. Like, I understand what's going on here. You don't got to do the show. I'll figure it out. Like, no biggie. Fuck you, I'm like, okay, good night. I said, I'll be down at the lobby at 9:00 in the morning if you want to go to work. I'll be there. About 8:45, and so I could barely sleep because I'm like shitting my pants. Like, what am I gonna do? We got hundreds of thousands of dollars of orders, like, in at the National for this Tyson's first public appearance outside of just my little store in San Diego.
Right.
So I'm losing my mind. I can't sleep. I get down to the lobby about 8:30. I'm sitting there having a cup of coffee. About 8:45 rolls around. Mike comes down and sees me. He says, Sean, I'm really sorry. I was completely out of line. I was just losing my mind about my wife. Like, let's go to work. I'm like, oh God, thank you so much. Like, I just, like, I don't know what I was going to do. There. Yeah. It was the biggest relief of my life. Like, because I literally don't know how I would have made it right to the National or TriStar or whatever. And Mike, like, that moment humanized him to me when he apologized and like meant it. And so at that point, I was like, okay, we can do this. It'll be fine. And for a couple of years, it was great. There was a UFC fight. I don't even remember what we were doing or where it was. Must have been a sign. It was one of the Wrestle Reunion or WrestleCon in LA. And we got him. They did a live wrestling show. We got him after the signing to do a little in-ring skit or segment with Mick Foley. And it was great. And then afterwards went up to the room and we're watching this UFC pay-per-view, me and Mike and Godfather and a couple of my staff. And me and Mike and the Godfather are all sitting in one hotel room bed watching the UFC pay-per-view together. Like, it was just so weird. It's like 3 high school buddies sitting, like, just sharing a bed to like grab a seat to watch the pay-per-view. It's hilarious. And that's just a fun memory too there. Wow. But Mike's a big cannabis advocate and user. And so he would take a lot of weed breaks. And a couple of my employees are big fans too. And he would always tell me, he's like, hey, bring this guy. I like smoking with that guy. Bring this guy. I like smoking with that guy. So he knew that I could take care of business, but he wanted like a couple of guys that he could hang out and smoke with on breaks. And so he was really easy at that point. After then, he just hated doing inscriptions. But other than that, like, he was a lot of fun. And it really was a lot of fun working with Mike. I mean, we did one at Frank and Sons with him and Stan Lee together, and Stan used to write letters to Mike when he was in prison and send him comic books and stuff. And so I'm sitting there just a fly on the wall listening to Mike Tyson and Stan Lee talk about comic books and their favorite superheroes and this stuff. And I'm like, is this really happening right now? Like, what? Like, I didn't even get it. And it's funny listening to Mike and Stan talk about the mindset of a certain comic book character that Stan created. And I don't remember the guy's name. I don't know anything about comics, but I'm like, Mike is literally arguing with the creator of this character about that character's mindset. And like, that was I figure that's what like all these politicians think of us. So, like when we're making political commentary on the internet, you know, like these idiots have really no idea what they're talking about. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so I got a kick out of that. And that was a lot of fun. I'm trying to think of other Mike Tyson stories, but that not a Mike Tyson story, but that LA show where Tyson was on, Scott Steiner punched a fan that day.
Really?
And the fan threw a beer on him, so he was a total dick. And like, I don't blame Scott for what he did, but it was still like he still could have got sued or whatever. But we talked everybody down and ended up working okay. Then about a year later, I booked the Steiner brothers again in LA. And I go to Rick and I say, hey dude, your brother scares the shit out of me. There's just something like he's like him and Larry Allen, Scott Steiner and Larry Allen, the Cowboys O-line guy, like the two men that I've like only ever in Tyson were like the only guys that I've ever been physically intimidated by in my entire life. So I go to Rick and I say, hey dude, like your brother scares the shit out of me. There's just something that's off with that guy that just makes it weird for me. Like, can you just let me know if Scotty's like on edge or anything's just not perfect for Scotty, just so like we're cool. Rick's like, yeah, dude, no problem. He's in a great mood. Everything's fine with Scotty. Like, I know how he could be. Like, you're not going to have a problem. Like, it's all good. And if something comes up, I'll for sure let you know. Rick's right next to me, standing right in front of me. He's like, I guess Scotty's walking up from behind. Hey, Scotty, Sean says you're a fucking asshole. And he doesn't going to pay you this weekend. And fuck you. And my heart sank right there. I was like, lost my mind. I'm like, oh, you. And Scott comes up, grabs and puts his arm around him. He's like, well, everything's great, man. We're all good. But that's just a great like wrestling memory of mine. And Scott was perfect that weekend. But if you've ever met Scott Steiner and look into his eyes, like there's just something a little bit off with that guy.
Absolutely, I agree.
But Scott's been great ever since. Never had a problem with. I haven't seen him in quite a while, but he's great. It was a lot of fun.
I must say, when he was at my fan fest one year, he was very polite, very nice.
Yeah. There's just the once in a blue moon incident that happens.
That happens. Yeah. Now you've worked with so many people, but is there somebody out there that you've always wanted to work with, and for whatever reason it eluded you, and you're like, man, and maybe there's still potential for that to happen down the road, or maybe it's somebody who passed away, and somebody you just always wanted to work with?
It's a good question. Let's do that question a little bit. I'd like to come on. There's got to be a yes to that.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Let it simmer. Any memories of Steve Mongo McMichael?
No, never met him. One thing that I got to know Deborah a little bit, his ex-wife and Steve's ex-wife actually too, and it was interesting how highly she talked about Steve McMichael. And that's unusual for an ex-wife to just speak nothing but positivity about her ex-husband. That's the only experience that I have with Mongo. It's just from his ex-wife talking about how awesome of a guy he was. And that's unusual. So he must have been great.
Yeah.
Oh, so anyway, that reminded me of Flair, who basically connected me in Austin. So I'll be indebted to Rick forever for that. And I used to get along with Rick really well, and I haven't seen him and talked to him in a while. But he got pissed at me one time and kind of soured the relationship. But everybody that I talked to said, yeah, that's Rick. He's just hot and cold sometimes, and sometimes he'll just be a dick for no reason. The next time he sees you, it'll be all great. But I don't know, just I didn't like that experience. He accused me of a bunch of stuff that didn't happen, and so I just wasn't interested in doing business with Flair after that. And no hard feelings. It's just I don't want that in my life, and so I don't mess with Flair. And then I have a lot of great memories of Flair, and his stuff sells great, and we did some great business, and I paid him a lot of money, and he's made me a lot of money, but I'm done with the bullshit.
And how would you compare the autograph world, the autograph industry now in comparison to maybe 20, 30 years ago? Whether it be good or bad.
Well, I think the biggest issue now is not everybody's available, especially in wrestling or baseball. I mean, anything really. Like a lot of these bigger names have exclusive contracts, and you can't get to them without going through them if they'll even do it. Back at 30 years ago, you could call the WWE and say, "Hey, I need The Rock for a signing. What's his fee?" And they'll book it for you, no problem. Now that's just not even an option. And so that's same with like a lot of baseball and basketball players or whatever. It just some of the players are not accessible for public appearances, and that's unfortunate. And then with eBay and online commerce, everybody's a dealer now. There's no like if you're like a mystery box subscriber and you get an autograph every month and you don't like that guy, you already have one, you're going to put it on eBay and try to sell it. Or you buy a pack of cards and you get something good, but you're not a fan of the guy, you're going to try and sell it. And so now everybody's a dealer. And that's a big change. It used to not be like that.
Now, as far as talent that you've personally worked with over the years, who would you say was your biggest turnout? Who did the best?
Oh, Steve, absolutely. Yeah. And that was at the WrestleMania show in Vegas this past year. He was jam-packed for 2 days, autographs and photo ops, and it probably could have gone, but it was like 3,000 people came through to meet him. But it took forever because he's really nice and like would talk to every single person, which is great. You're giving the people their money's worth, but it adds a couple hours to the day.
Sure.
Outside of that, like when I was doing a lot of the Comic Cons before I had kids, I'd go to Comic Cons and trade shows and stuff all over the country and bring in talent and do a lot of signings. Stan Lee was always a massive draw, but the biggest that I remember seeing during those shows was Norman Reedus from The Walking Dead when that show was hot. He would have to sell out. Like he couldn't. Like there was one day the show closed at 6:00 and he was there by himself till 9. Everybody else gone home, but just signed because they didn't want to turn people away, which I thought was great. And that was an eye-opening experience right there, seeing how big of a draw he was. That changed my perspective on paying a lot of money for signings, because I'm like, if there's thousands of people showing up to meet this guy, paying, I think it was $75, $60 at the time for an autograph. He's probably twice that now, but I'm like, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so that made me realize that it's okay spending big money.
Right. Similar situation happened at Rhode Island Comic Con one year with the actor who played Negan on The Walking Dead. And it was in his prime. The show ended at 6:00 or whatever time, and he was there for hours after the fact.
That show took off. I found out, I used to watch the show all the time too, but my TV watching like is not the same. My kids take up most of my time now, but I guess there's like multiple spin-offs of The Walking Dead, and this show's like still like a thing years, and that's pretty cool. I guess that crosses over a few different genres. So
right.
It's kicking butt.
They found the right niche, and
right.
It's still going. Now, if you could put together a Mount Rushmore of football, who would the top 4 be of all time?
I haven't followed football at all since the Chargers left. and I barely think about football anymore, and like I'm
Sure.
kind of bitter because the whole Chargers thing. But I would just go with my favorites. Would be LaDainian Tomlinson, Chuck Muncie, Randall Cunningham, and Barry Sanders. Those are my favorite players. But in wrestling, when the Mount Rushmore in wrestling comes up a lot, and mine's different than a lot of people because of the way I do it. My Mount Rushmore in wrestling is Bruno, Hogan, Austin, and Cena, because those four guys carried an entire era, And are they the four best? Maybe. An argument could definitely be made, but those four were the number one guy for their era. And, other than Steve, it was an extended period of time for each of those other guys.
I mean, there's really no wrong answer. It's preference, but
right.
It's hard to argue your four for sure.
In the way that I look at it, you could take four guys from the 80s. You could take Austin, Rock, Hogan, and Taker, and you wouldn't be wrong either. But that's all kind of the same era there, and so the way that I do it's a little different, and it's not really because if we're talking about a Mount Rushmore, it's founders. So if we're being honest, we're putting Gorgeous George and Bruno and people from that area. If we're doing a real Mount Rushmore, it's founders.
Sure.
But nobody knows who those guys are anymore anyway. Very few people. Like if you ask wrestlers now who's Gorgeous George, somebody our age might be like, oh yeah, Macho Man's wife.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But anybody under 30 is not going to have any idea who any Gorgeous George is.
And while we're on the topic, how about a Mount Rushmore for basketball?
Oh wow, Jordan, and Jordan.
Yeah, right.
I mean, my favorites were Jordan, Barkley, Olajuwon, and Shaq. But now, now that I'm older, like I didn't like Kobe, but now, like Kobe might be my favorite other than Jordan. Just hearing that guy's interviews, like I see so many clips of him on social media, and I wish that I knew how awesome he was when he was alive. I would have made more of an effort to be a fan or maybe work with him professionally, because that guy, he had it together. He had the right mindset. Like he really was like as close to Jordan as you can get.
And that's the thing. Sometimes it's hard. You don't know how good it actually is until it's too late,
Yeah. My buddy from Beckett, he used to be with PSA, Steve Grad. He was on a flight with Kobe. He was Chicago to Orange County years ago. And he called me or sent me a text and said, hey, I'm landing here at John Wayne Airport at this time, and Kobe's on my flight. Show up at the airport and get some shit signed. And I was like, dude, Steve, thanks, man. Like, he's that guy from Pawn Stars, the autograph expert on Pawn Stars now. Yeah. So he hooked me up with that, and like I went and got a jersey signed and a couple shoes signed. And Kobe was awesome. It was cool to meet him, but on that flight, Steve introduced himself to Kobe, and they sat next to each other, and Steve just picked Kobe's brain about all the fakes. So he opened up his computer with all the exemplars and was going through it with Kobe, and was like, yeah, that's how I signed from this year to this year. That one's definitely fake. And hey, when you're looking at my autograph, look at this and this and this and these tendencies and stuff. And so I would have loved to have had that conversation between Steve and Kobe recorded. That would have been so cool.
Oh yeah. When it comes to memorabilia, what's the favorite piece that you either own currently or have owned in the past? Is there one wow item that you just...
I had a 27 Yankees ball that I sold. Actually, it wasn't mine. Like I couldn't afford it at the time, but somebody brought it into my store just a walk-in in San Diego. And I said, I can't pay for it. Like, if I'm being honest, like I could give you some lowball deal and it wouldn't be right, but let me just take it on consignment. And so I sold it for him on eBay, and I took a fair price, and I wasn't going to ship that because at that time it was more money than I could even comprehend.
Yeah.
And so the buyer, the buyer was in Dallas. So I took the ball, jumped on a plane, flew to Dallas, handed it to him at the airport, and flew back the next flight back, just because I didn't trust the shipping on all that. And the insurance on that ball was going to be more than my flight to Chicago, to Dallas anyway. So
Right.
I just hand delivered it, and that was cool. I was a big baseball guy. And then, but that wasn't mine. The only autograph that I have in my house of mine is Uncle Cracker signed guitar. Him and Kid Rock are my favorite musicians, and I've gotten to know Cracker really well. And I flew him out during COVID, and he did a concert at my house in my backyard, which is
No way.
awesome. A whole lot of fun, yeah.
Wow.
And so I got a guitar that he signed, and I have kids over my house all the time, like neighborhood kids, my kids' friends. I built like a little sports complex in my house, and one of my kids' friends broke that guitar, the signed guitar, on accident. Like
Oh,
hit it with a basketball and shattered and whatever. So I said, you know what, dude? Like you signed that guitar too, and so now it's signed by my Uncle Cracker. It's all broken, but I left it up in that spot, signed by that Uncle Cracker and a 9-year-old boy. I'm like, Blake, dude, you got to get in Major League Baseball to make this guitar worth something again, man. So you got something to shoot for to recoup my money there.
right. Exactly.
So like now I like that guitar just as much because it's a fun story, and like I get to give Blake a hard time for destroying my guitar. The only autograph that I had in my entire house, and he blew it up. So that's that. But former Major League Baseball player Randall Simon played like 8-9 years in the big leagues. He comes to my house every Wednesday and does private lessons. So he's over here 5-6 hours a day or a week. And I love talking sports with that guy. He played for quite a few teams. The other day, he mentioned Kenny Lofton to me. He was one of my favorite players because he played college basketball at University of Arizona.
Yep.
And I was a big college basketball fan. And so in Arizona was Lute Olson, great teams. And so he put me on the phone with Kenny Lofton the other day, just as a fan. And I'm like, hey, that was fun for me. Like if I was to work with Kenny Lofton, like whatever. But in that situation where it's strictly me as a fan talking to him about childhood memories was so much more fun. Like than if I was to pay Kenny for an appearance or something. And then one big thing that changed my life was Jimmy Hart. When I first started getting into wrestling, like Jimmy offered up a lot of information, and he's as good a wrestling mind as there is, and he's also a wonderful human being. And so one day we're talking, and he's telling me, he's like, "What's wrestling today missing?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't watch wrestling today." He says, "Well, what do you notice about the show? Watch for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and then call me back." And so I watched. I'm like, "Well, Cowboy Bob's Kid's pretty good, you know." He's like, "Yeah, heck yeah." I'm like, "Well, what's special about Randy Orton?" I said, "I don't know, man. Like, he's over. I don't really like." I said, "How is he different than the other two? The guy he wrestled and the two guys before him and the two guys after him?" I said, "Good question. I don't really know. Like, what are you getting at, Jimmy?" He said, "They're all just wearing black tights and boots. There's no color in wrestling like there was in the 80s. In the 80s, we had the Birdman coming out with a bird. You had the Bulldog coming out with a dog. You had Jake who had a snake. You had a garbage man. You had, all sorts of characters and color and, steamboats blowing fire. And it was much more of an entertainment, like presentation and like I don't know, circus act, all these colorful characters. And that wasn't like that in wrestling at that time.
Right.
And so I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. I guess I never noticed that." And so that led me to, I took my, fast forward a few years, I took my son, who was like 4 at the time, to a local indie show. And I think I can't remember if I did a signing with him or not, but the current WWE guy, Penta, we know him as Pentagon Jr. You still there, Joe?
Still here. Yep.
Okay. And I saw Penta was like colorful, like an 80s WWF guy. I like saw like, man, this guy's got this hand signal, his face is painted, he's wearing a mask, his whole suit. It's pretty wild. Like remind me of like just an 80s WWF guy. And like there's the color. And so then I watched Lucha Underground with my son, who thought Penta was the coolest guy in the world. And I'm like, dude, all these luchadors have all the color, like Jimmy Hart was telling me about. And that reminded me of like, it's like, man, this Lucha Libre thing is pretty interesting. And I hated Lucha when I was a wrestling fan. Like it was not like when if Rey Mysterio and Hoovy were on WCW Nitro, I'm changing to Raw at that time. I wanted nothing to do with Lucha. It just didn't look real to me. You weren't jacked like Warrior and Hogan. Like it just was. It just I thought it was like it was too fake for me, I guess you'd say. Like it just didn't make sense. Like these moves. But my kid wanted to see Penta, and so on TV, so we started watching Lucha Underground. I'm like, man, this is awesome. Like this is what Jimmy was telling me about. And so I started getting into Lucha big time. It's like 2018, 17 maybe. Okay. And that really just took me down this whole Lucha rabbit hole. And I done like 100 Lucha signings ever since then. My kids are on a ton of Lucha Libre shows in AAA, which is a whole different conversation. We're happy to get into that too. But that was so much fun, like just learning Lucha and seeing the color. And then obviously WWE saw what I saw since they bought AAA, and they've made Penta one of their most marketable guys. He's on their, advertisements and everything else now. And so I was just a little bit of ahead of WWE. Thanks to Jimmy. Right. Yeah. So
Jimmy's got a point. I mean, everybody had such a unique look and the robes and the, I think as fancy as they get nowadays, it's a pair of gloves and a vest, maybe.
Right. So with that, I very rare, like you see like Seth Rollins, who I think the whole character is just unbelievably ridiculous, but it's perfect.
Yeah, he stands out. He does.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't watch the show, but there's a few people like that just really stand out that are more than Batista versus Randy Orton, who are in their underwear.
Right.
Now
when it comes to memorabilia, what do you think the most expensive piece that you've ever handled at a signing, that belonged to somebody else? Something that's come through the line and you're like, man, this is crazy. Anything that comes to mind in particular?
I can't say. No, I really can't. Every once in a while I'll see something that cool, like, hey, this is awesome. Like, but value wise, nothing stands out like that. I've just, the coolness of autographs is really worn off on me now. It's inventory, not like it's takes something very, very different to like get me excited.
Sure.
The last piece of memorabilia that I got for me was a gift. Austin actually gave me his Teen Choice Award surfboard that he won for being like favorite wrestler or athlete or something in '99. And so instead of a trophy, they gave him like a surfboard, and he gifted that to me. And so and I don't have it at my house yet because I couldn't take it on the plane. So it's at my buddy Brian's house in the Bay Area. But that's to me, that's the coolest. I mean, Steve gave me one of his championship belts too. But that's at the Framer, so that's not even here. But those are pretty awesome gifts from, Steve. Like, not a lot of people could say they have that stuff.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
So, number one sports moment of all time, any sport, anything stand out to you? Even if it's just a personal favorite, not necessarily for the industry.
A good memory of mine was being at 98 Padres playoff game against the Astros and Ken Caminiti hitting a home run. That was really cool for me. Like, I was in the bleachers with my dad, and like he was in the Navy and traveled a lot, was gone half the year, like every year it seemed like, and he was a high level officer. And so his home time was not like, there wasn't a lot of time outside of work for that guy. And so that's a good memory for me and my dad together, and the Padres in the playoffs, and that's definitely one of them. Watching my kids now is more fun than any of that stuff. I mean, my kids have both performed at Triple Mania and at baseball stadiums in Mexico in front of 15, 20,000 people, um, which is a lot of fun too. That's the coolest. Watching my kid in the middle of the ring in front of 15,000 people with Jeff Jarrett, and like that doesn't get any better than that. I mean, they've been on TV many times. That's a lot of fun. We don't have a lot of time to do a lot of the wrestling stuff anymore because there's so much sports. Like my kids are on 3 or 4 sports teams at all times, and so every day it's sports.
Sure.
But during COVID, I had 4 big pro wrestling shows at my house. California was very shut down. It was like as bad as it got in the country as far as like COVID limitations, and I wasn't buying all that bullshit. And so I had massive parties at my house. We had 4 big wrestling shows with hundreds of people at my house. I threw a ring in my backyard, and I had Penta wrestled at my house twice. Brian Cage, Alberto Del Rio, Tessa Blanchard, Val Venus, Don Fry, Moose. I mean, we had Chris Statlander. We had a lot of good wrestlers here wrestling in my backyard for the kids during COVID, and nobody ever got sick. And it was a nice break for people to do something in California when the rest of the place was shut down.
Yeah.
And the wrestlers all really appreciated it too, because there wasn't a lot of work for them. And so they got to come and do this stuff with me. And it was, those are some of my favorite memories as like a human, being able to provide like once in a lifetime experiences 4 different times for my community, when nothing else was happening. And making some of these wrestlers make some money and the kids get some enjoyment out of it. And me being able to open the house and nobody getting sick was the best part too, of course, but it was just, we made too much money during COVID. So I had pro wrestling shows for kids. And
yeah, exactly.
with like A-level guys. And I'm sure I'm forgetting. Dude, we had a pro wrestling match. Mark Coleman versus Don Fry. Like they both wrestled in New Japan, but like that's just not something you see every day. And that was a lot of fun. And MMA, old school MMA fans will love that. I got all this stuff filmed too. I just haven't edited it and put it on there because I actually hired like real production. Like I could put these on shows, like, and I probably will at some point.
And do you guys have a YouTube page?
Yeah. And I'll put it up there eventually. That's where like Mr. Iguana did it out there. Like that kid was so over with the kids. So I knew, and that's a perfectly another great example of the color in Lucha Libre. You got a lizard, and then there was other guy like Aerostar who was like I don't know, from outer space. Drago who's like a dragon. These guys, they're just the characters just brought me so much back just to Jimmy Hart and what he was saying. And so I love seeing like my boy Vikingo on TV, WWE TV, like, and Psycho Clown, like those guys. Mexico, man, like has been so much fun for me and my family. And a lot of that I got to thank Conan for, because him and I have been friends forever. I actually he came and wrestled right after he left WCW, my indie that I was working for in like 2000. And we met then, and 25 years later, like next week, we're going to a basketball game, San Diego State UCLA basketball game together. Like, and he's creative and like talent relations for AAA. So he kind of just let me do whatever I wanted down there, as long as I was being respectful and paying everybody what they need to be paid.
Sure.
And so, that's like, I can't even get to tell you what my kids done in Mexico. Like it's, kind of, you remember that WrestleMania or whatever, where that little kid Nicholas was tag team champions with Braun Strowman?
Yeah.
That's my kids like once a month back,
Right.
for 3-year period. Like there's a great picture of my son in a Vikingo uniform with Pentagon, Vikingo, and Psycho Clown in the middle of a ring in the arena. Like And it just he became one of the wrestlers. Like my oldest, my youngest was a little scared sometimes. He was intimidated, like
Yeah.
because he wasn't in on the business. Like none of them were, it was still all real to them, and so they were a little worried sometimes. But Penta and Psycho said, we'll never let anything to happen to you guys. Don't worry, it's all good. And but my youngest was a little self-conscious, and so he was worried. He didn't like going out with Vikingo because he didn't wear a mask. And so he's like, what if I fall on my face, embarrass myself? They'll all know it's me. So he liked doing the Psycho Clown and Penta because he got to wear a mask and like hide who he was. But it's it was a lot of fun. There's a great photo of my one of my kids like nose to nose or as close as you can get with Jeff Jarrett in the middle of a ring. Like that's just amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, and Jeff's so cool. Like he's got kids and so he took real good care of them.
And you mentioned WrestleMania. Do you have a favorite WrestleMania over the years?
Good question. No, I can't say so. But it just kind of all blends together now, But I just have so many memories of whenever I was sick when I was a kid. My mom would take me to Blockbuster Video and I'd get DVDs or VHS tapes of old WrestleManias and early UFC. And I'm sitting there on the flu for a couple of days, just binge watching WrestleMania 1 through 10 and UFC 1 through 5. And like, that's just great memories of me. Like whenever I'd be ill at home as a kid, missing school, that's what I'd watch. And that's great memories right there too.
And how about memories working with NWO, whether it be Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash?
Oh man, I Kevin's probably other than Austin, Kevin's probably my close friend in the wrestling business, and I absolutely love that guy. And my heart breaks for him because he lost Scott and his son in a matter of a year, and I mean it's just unbelievable. Like, and Scott's just such a wonderful guy, or Kevin. And what's funny is, man, like I did not get along with Scott Hall at all. Like I despise that guy. He just was not cool. I couldn't find common ground with that guy. And his two best friends were X-Pac and Kevin Nash, who were two of my best friends.
Wow.
And it's just whatever, man, is just that's the way. And I'm like, Nash, like, what's up with this? He's like, bro, Scott's just one of those guys where you either hit or miss with that guy, Because and Austin wasn't real fond of Scott either. But and it's just weird. But Scott Hall, of course, was a massive draw, an incredibly talented wrestler, and great mind for the business. And just personally, we just didn't get along. And I tried real hard, actually.
Yeah.
But he also wasn't in the best mindset at that time when we were trying to do business,
Sure.
So I'm sure that had a lot to do with it. I wish I could have got to know a sober Scott Hall.
Right. Yeah, we had
anybody
Scott,
ever did.
We've had Scott a couple times at the Fan Fest over the years, and 2014 he just he wasn't himself. But when we had him again in 2015, he was just one of the great guys to work with. He really was.
Oh yeah, good.
Yeah, I mean he was
Glad
in great
to hear
shape. So yeah.
One of my favorites was Roddy Piper. He was just so unbelievably good to the fans. Just that's one thing that I really like about this job is being able to connect fans and their heroes, and like watching that experience happen is honestly the most rewarding part about this job. Sure. People breaking down in tears and hearing stories of how much this guy meant to him and that sort of thing. And Piper he gave people an experience, not just an autograph.
Right.
He'd get up and hug them and ask name. Like Piper really cared too, like Steve does.
Yeah.
And I miss Roddy very much, and because of that, and he was a fucking lunatic too, man, and that's might be why I liked him so much because he was insane.
He was very personable though. He took the time.
Yes, and Piper just reminded me of Snuka. And, oh boy, Jimmy Snuka is a big fan favorite, of course, and I doing a signing with him back in 2011, and this is a terrible story, but so we did a signing with Snuka, paid him cash, but he tried to hold me up 4 different times for more money. on the same deal. And I'm like, dude, I'm not paying you more money. Just stop. Like you can stop signing at any point, and we'll deal with whatever comes of it at that point. But I'm not paying you any money. So he's just purposely going as slow as he can, But he's not sober either. He's out of his mind, and it's very uncomfortable. Like a lot of this is on video too. And I like go back every once in a while and watch that video and just see how uncomfortable I am and how Jimmy is just, there's something wrong with him. His eyes just aren't right. Like he's just, and so, but we have a big party up in the hotel room after. I had a big suite, the president's suite. And like all the wrestlers came up after the show. Brett, Kevin, Nash, Waltman, Bret Hart, Nasty Boys, Snuka, Honky, just all the guys came up hanging out in my room afterwards. And Jimmy fell asleep on the couch in the room. And so I had one of my buddies. I'm like, dude, we can't have this fucking guy sleeping in the hotel room like this. So my buddy, I was like, get this guy out of here, dude. So my buddy from college, he goes over, he's trying to wake up Snuka. He's barely conscious. And I'm like, he's like, Sean, what am I supposed to do? I'm like, bro, figure it out. You got to get him to his room. Like, you can't just sleep here on the couch. There's still 40 people in this hotel room.
Right.
So he gets underneath Jimmy's armpits and literally drags him out of the hotel room down the hall to his hotel room. And the next morning, I get a call from a number they don't recognize. Hi, Sean, this is Carol Snuka. I'm like, hi, Carol, what's going on? It's like, you need to go pay my husband. And I'm like, what do you mean pay your husband? It's like, yeah, he said you stiffed him. And I'm like, no, dude, Carol, I got a whole room full of people that saw me pay him in cash. Like, it might even be on video. I definitely did not stiff this guy. He's like, well, Jimmy told me you stiffed him. I'm like, well, I can't tell you. That's between you and Jimmy, but I can, promise you that I didn't. So Jimmy either got so wasted, forgot that I paid him, or was trying to kayfabe his wife and, keep the money and not tell her, or maybe he spent it on whatever. But either way, like, I get this angry ass call. And then she goes on Facebook and starts blasting, never do business with Sean from American Icon. He stiffed my husband, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like pissed. So I call Rikishi. I'm like, bro, I know you guys are like kayfabe family, but dude, call Snuka and like fucking try to smooth this over for me. And he's like, yeah, Sean, no problem. I got you. So he calls up, I'm like, Keisha, I don't want any problem with your family. You know what I'm saying? You guys, like, we're old friends. Like, I don't want to deal with this shit. Like, this is not me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I paid him. He said, of course you did. So he calls Carol. It's like, yo, I didn't talk to Jimmy, but Carol swears up and down that you stiffed Jimmy. I was like, I don't believe it, but so whatever. So I'm like, you know what? Fuck him. I don't care. Like, let it go. I'll let my reputation stand for itself and let the Snuka reputation stand for itself. And, I got a lot more work the last 10 years of my life in the wrestling business than Snuka did for that exact reason.
Yeah.
And I felt terrible for the guy because he was obviously in a bad shape mentally, that he was so fucked up that he made up a story or to his wife to like basically steal the money from his family or forgot that I paid him, so that's just like, I got a lot of empathy for his issues that he was going through at the time. And that's a bummer because Snuka was one of my favorites as a kid.
Yeah.
But that's part of doing business, right? I mean,
right, it happens.
You win some, you lose some.
Right. Now, what advice do you have to somebody that's just getting into the industry? Maybe they want to run signings or conventions. What kind of advice you have for somebody like that?
Okay. That's a good question. Do whatever you have to do in order to never sell a fake autograph, number one. And if you have any sort of question, get it authenticated by a third-party company or all of them, whatever. Like, if you sell one fake autograph, that makes everybody question everything at that point that you might be selling. So just leave no room for doubt. That's number one. And number two, don't ruin the market. There's more to this business than your one-time deal with one person, So like, if you go do a signing with somebody and you end up with 50 autographed 8x10s of this guy after the signing. Don't go out there and sell them for $5 a piece to the public. Keep their market level of where it's supposed to be. Don't ruin that person's market because you want to recoup a little bit of money right here, right now. It's not worth it in the long run for anything, really. We got to keep, like, if I don't care, if Steve Austin happened to sign a picture for you for free, or I gave you one or something like that, it's not a good idea to put it out for sale for $99. You want to put it at the regular market value. You're only hurting yourself and the industry as a whole to undercut yourself and everybody else to make a quick buck. The overall industry and the market, keeping somebody's market consistent is more valuable in the long run than making a quick buck.
Excellent. And what would you say your next set of goals are? Do you have something you want to do that you've never done before, or add to your resume?
No,
you've done it all.
No, there's like, I mean, mid 2000s, before I got married, like I was doing a lot of signings with Playboy Playmates. I was, going to Playboy parties, the mansion and stuff, hanging with Hef. Like I've been, when I was doing all the football signings, I was like renting a room at my buddy's house in LA. And so my overhead was like nothing. And so we'd go out to clubs and parties and just spend thousands of dollars on bottles and and just, I've been there, done that with like everything. That now I'm just the suburban dad, bro. Like, dude, coaching little league and baseball and basketball and hanging out with kids and like giving kids cool experiences with ball players and that sort of thing. I can't, there's really nothing that I want to do now other than being a dad.
No, it doesn't get any better than that. So
yeah, I mean,
now we're winding.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying we're winding down here. Just a couple more questions. The card industry, touching base on the cards. Like you said, they were big back in the day. They kind of took a dive for a while, and there was really no interest in cards, no value. And now it seems to be hot again. What's your take on that?
Well, like I said, kind of at the beginning of this whole thing is when we were kids, trading cards were hot, and now we're at the position in our life or at the age where we're getting people our age-ish are making money now. We've got real jobs or careers or moving up in the corporate ranks where there's some disposable money and we're having kids. And so we're bringing back like our childhood through our kids. And that's, in my opinion, why cards got popular again, because of people our age getting back into it with the extra money they were making during COVID or getting into it with their kids. And so that's why I think cards have made a big comeback. I'm a little bit worried about the market because they're unaffordable now, trading cards. And I'm curious to see, and they're kind of mass produced now, like they were doing in the 80s.
Yeah.
And, like when Topps or Panini or somebody puts out a new card of somebody now, there's like 50 different variations of one cards of that guy. And like, what's the point of one of one if there's 50 different ones? You know what I'm saying? So there's just, right. I'm curious to see what happens to the trading card market. Right now, literally this week, I should be finalizing a very big deal with Leaf Trading Cards to produce another wrestling and MMA set for them. They haven't had an MMA set since like 2010. And this wrestling set that it looks like we're going to do is going to be use photos instead of art for the first time in their wrestling.
Okay.
And so I'm like really looking forward to seeing what happens there. And I'm trying to get them to do kiss cards from some of the female wrestlers. Like there was in 2001 Fleer WWF, they did like Molly Holly and Trish kiss cards that are selling for a lot of money. Yep. So that's something that I'd like to bring back with them. And we're trying to get it done with this one. I'm really hope they go for it. I have Steve Austin's ring. Like we set up a ring at his house to train for that match with Kevin Owens.
Sure.
But after Mania, he's like, I don't need the ring anymore. So he sold it back to me. And so that ring's in my warehouse. Like, and I'm thinking about making relic cards out of the ring, or maybe at least just the canvas, Steve Austin's personal ring, put them in cards. Like, there's a few things that I'm thinking about doing there. But I still got a little bit of lucha libre stuff to do. But during COVID, like, business was so good that I just kept buying stuff and doing deals, but I didn't focus on selling anything because I didn't
Yeah.
have to try. The money was just coming in. And so I've got like 20,000 SKUs that I have that are waiting to get online for sale.
Sure.
So as far as doing any signings right now, like, I'm not motivated at all. I'm motivated to get all that old inventory online. Like, literally, I'm listing stuff on eBay right now that I obtained in like 2019. It's that bad.
Wow. So
So
clear it up before you add to it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say no to certain deals. Like, I mean, anytime I can get a good enough offer to Steve and convince him to do something, it's going to happen. Because I remodeled like my whole backyard with Steve Austin commission money. I mean, it's awesome. Like, I the last signing we did, he came to me and he said, as I called him like last minute before a deal, I said, hey, can you come over to the hotel and sign for about 2 hours? I got to make this extra shit happen to like make it work. And he's like, yeah, dude, no problem. Totally unexpected, like in Vegas, like, and he didn't even question, just didn't ask what he was getting out of it, whatever, just went and did it. And then the next day, we grab a coffee before we got to go to work. And he says, Sean, I'm a little bit worried right now. I'm like, what are you worried about, Steve? He said, dude, I'm worried that you're not making enough money on this one. Are you good? And I'm like, holy shit. Nobody's ever given a shit or asked anything like that ever.
Right.
So, I mean, that just goes to show you what kind of guy that guy is, man. He really is. If he was never a wrestler, him and I would have been friends. He's like my kind of dude. And that, like, what a big heart, like giving me one of his championship belts, his surfboard, like the trophy, and like asking, like, dude, do you need more money on this? Like, that's incredible. And I'm telling you, like, I make an unbelievable amount of cash doing these Steve Austin deals. And so for him to like care enough is pretty cool.
That's awesome. Now, how can fans follow you, American Icon Autographs, on YouTube, social media, website?
I know on Facebook it's American Icon Autographs. I think that's what it is on Instagram too, and YouTube, all the same. I haven't really been working on that stuff too much. I don't like, because I stopped doing so many signings and events. We just have a 3-man team now at American Icon, and the social media is one of the things that we kind of like let go away. So I'll do that myself, but it's not important to me at all. And like, marketing myself or my company is not something that I enjoy doing. Like, I don't like putting myself over, my company over. It's just been uncomfortable for me forever. And that's why I don't do podcasts. Like, I never do this kind of stuff. Like, but Joe, you've always been so kind and like nice and professional that like I wanted to do this. I didn't have to. I like legitimately wanted to talk to you because I love what you're doing up in the Northeast too. I think it's great. So I'm really happy to do this one. But as far as social media and marketing, like, it sucks that I own like a company that really marketing is a big part of it, that I don't do it. If I was smart enough, I should have hired some freaking marketing expert to take the company next level. But I just, around the same time when that needed to happen is when I was having kids, and I put in 12 to 16-hour days all throughout my 20s to build this company, that when I had kids, I didn't want to work more than 40 hours a week. I want to be doing the Little League dad, all that stuff, and it's working out. Everything's perfect.
Well, you're proof that you don't need social media to do well. You know what I mean?
You're doing okay. But I don't,
No.
It's just not important to me.
And in closing, how do you want to be remembered? What do you want your legacy to be?
That I pushed my kids to do more than they ever thought they could do. That I would say, like, be a good dad, but like, that's not specific enough. I really, and all the kids that I coach in sports, baseball, football, basketball, whatever, like, I want to be known as the guy that convinced or made people do more than they ever thought they could do. You know, there's a kid here in locally, a second generation wrestler, that a guy that I used to wrestle with, a guy named Jason Redondo. He was a jobber in the WWF back in the day. He was actually the first person that took Shawn Michaels' Sweet Chin Music as a finisher, you know. But his son, like, I tried to hire his son at American Icon because he was just working at some valet thing or something. And he's a real sharp kid. And I was like, so I brought him in. I was like trying to get him to work for me. And I was like, Jake, what are you doing? It's like, well, I'm doing this, but I really want to be a wrestler. I'm like, bro, what are you waiting for? You know, there's 2 schools within 20 minutes of you. What are you waiting for? He said, you know, you're right. Like, what am I waiting for? I'll do it. I said, no. I'm not going to let you just say you're going to do it and leave. You're going to sit with me right now, and you're going to call the wrestling school and get your tuition money and show up on Tuesday.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, fine. And so that's what he did. And now he's got like 5 local indie belts, like, you know, a year and a half later, and he's killing it. And he's like very hot, young, like talent. And he never would have got around to it. He's like, I think I'm going to be a wrestler. I think I'm going to be a wrestler for 3 years. And just took that. And so, like, that's what I want to be remembered as, is like inspiring or forcing people to get to the next level.
Awesome. Sean, thanks so much for taking the time today. It's been a pleasure to have you here. And Sean Jacoby, ladies and gentlemen, one of the greats in promoting, you know, and really, truly, I mean, you have a great reputation, and you know, one of the elite guys out there doing it. So just want to thank you for taking the time.
Thanks a lot, Joe.
Yeah, no problem. Stick with me for 10 seconds and we'll sign off now. Thanks again for joining us, everybody.